The antiquated way of thinking of Stoicism is uncontrollably well known right now. Long-dead Stoic scholars, for example, Marcus Aurelius and Seneca the Younger, have become top-rated creators. This is to a great extent because of the self-improvement industry, which has rediscovered and repackaged Stoicism as a sort of self-improvement reasoning. This repackaging is incompletely the motivation behind why Stoicism is quite possibly the most misconstrued and mishandled philosophical schools. Emotionlessness is regularly offered to us as a way of thinking for activity, for occupied individuals who don't have the opportunity to ponder over philosophical riddles about existence. Specifically citing Seneca the Younger, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus wrong would give anyone the solid impression that that is the situation. The emotionlessness, as it is lectured by numerous individuals of its new disciples, is the new misconception, a method of really evading consideration and hard reasoning. A reasoning for activity, just as being a logical inconsistency in wording, is one that underestimates things, that lays on given presumptions. A system of thought. Apathy illuminates activity in its moral appearance, yet is undeniably in excess of a moral way of thinking. The Stoic scholars of antiquated Greece built up a hypothesis of the universe, a physical science, an arrangement of rationale, and a hypothesis of reality that the morals of Stoicism essentially get from. The actual premise of Stoicism is to not underestimate things, yet to ponder the actual idea of our being. At the core of Stoicism, as most different schools of theory, is the hug of examination. Consequently, their scholarly commitment to the old world was enormous. A definitive exercise of Stoicism is this: to carry on with a satisfying life is to ask yourself troublesome inquiries about what it is to be an individual. The Stoics valued explanation regardless of anything else, and reason requires discipline. It is regularly said that way of thinking is the endeavor to address the inquiry, how might I live? To endeavor to respond to that question requires concocting a sensible comprehension of the world and your connection to it. It's not really about finding an extreme truth, it's tied in with discovering footing to stroll with when such countless others are slipping near. Knowing yourself and your position on the planet will permit you to consider how you should live and ensure you are satisfying the qualities that you set for yourself. Contemplation specialists regularly offer the accompanying guidance: in case that is no joke to ponder for 10 minutes per day, you ought to reflect for an hour daily. This is valid for thought as well. In the event that you are too occupied to even think about examining life, you're diverting yourself from your life. You need to consider more. As Marcus Aurelius expressed, the joy of your life relies on the nature of your musings. Like everything advantageous throughout everyday life, quality contemplations don't come simple. Under the tutorship of Diognetus and Junius Rusticus, Marcus Aurelius accepted the austerity of the thoughtful lifestyle. As a kid, he wore a harsh shroud and would rest on the floor. He composed that his mom showed him strict devotion, effortlessness in eating regimen, and staying far from the methods of the rich. Marcus shared force for some time with Lucius Verus, his assenting sibling. The two acquired a realm at an extremely greed time in its set of experiences. Gigantic relocations of individuals started to squeeze the Roman lines, and Rome had gotten involved in a few long battles with the Parthian Empire and a few Germanic clans in the north. These contentions went on for Marcus' whole rule. He was triumphant in all the wars he battled, however the cost of triumph was high. Armies getting back from Parthia carried a plague with them that crushed the empire's populace and may have murdered his co-ruler. Reflections. His own notes, which proceeded to be distributed as the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, have a check despairing about them. The savant was a hesitant sovereign, tired of contention, and looked for comfort in his own contemplations as Stoics accepted they ought to. His compositions were expected to be private, thus his thoughts are deprived of the insightful setting from which they determine. Marcus was not shaping any contentions or hypotheses, and hence didn't have to reference the thinkers that preceded him in any profundity. He was basically journaling his rational musings. Marcus is awfully frequently cited outside any connection to the subject at hand. Pointed persuasive explanations are scholarly lousy nourishment. Marcus was thoroughly educated in Stoic way of thinking, and as a true blue thinker the head merits better. His mentor Frungo kept in touch with Marcus. It is better never to have contacted the instructing of theory than to have tasted it hastily, with the edge of the lips. The foreordained sovereign accepted the coach's recommendation and completely accepted the Stoic way of thinking until his demise. Marcus Aurelius' way of thinking in 10 citations. Underneath I have taken a best 10 of Marcus Aurelius' cites from a self-improvement citation site, if they are Marcus is irrelevant, and set them with regards to Stoic way of thinking. Going with each statement is a short extension that will spread out the essential fundamentals of Stoic way of thinking in a cautious successive request. These developments will give you a superior clarification on how the statements could assist you with examining life. 1. The solidarity, all things considered. Everything is connected with each other, and this unity is hallowed. The unity of the universe is an antiquated thought and way of thinking. This is designated monism. Monism is the conviction that there is at last one substance which shows in a majority of appearances, like fire, water, earth and tissue. Most Stoics accepted the one substance was God. Marcus expressed, there is one substance and one law, specifically, regular explanation in all reasoning animals, and all reality is one if, as we accept, there is just a single way of flawlessness for all creatures who share a similar psyche. Since God is in all things and not isolated from us, there is no domain higher than nature, and God is all swarming in nature, one should act as per nature to be near God. Remarkable advocates of the possibility of monism incorporate Parmenides, circa 500 BC, and Baruch Spinoza, 17th century. Zeno of Elias, a devotee of Parmenides, endeavored to exhibit the unity of things with his popular oddities. 2. Everything is foreordained. All that happens occurs as it ought to, and on the off chance that you notice cautiously, you will discover this to be so. In the event that the universe involves various parts of a heavenly one, at that point everything should be great. In the case of everything is great, at that point everything can be no alternate way. The Stoics accepted that all occasions are foreordained, this is designated determinism in way of thinking, and that you have either no control or next to no power over conditions. Everything is destined. Numerous Stoics had faith in divination, fortune-telling techniques, for example, soothsaying and parts, what could be compared to tarot cards, since everything, regardless of how apparently unimportant, is interconnected in destiny. 3. You have control over your brain, however not occasions. You have control over your psyche, not external occasions. Understand this, and you will discover strength. You will be unable to change the course of occasions, yet you do, be that as it may, have power over your own considerations and feelings. This is the manner by which Stoicism is firmly connected with poise. Things can go gravely, yet we can handle our reaction. To just realize this is to discover mental strength. Mental strength is the thing that the Stoics are renowned for. Misfortune and life's good and bad times are met with quiet and respect. Marcus Aurelius lost in any event 2 baby kids. In an exceptional section of Meditations, he expressed, one man implores, how I may not lose my young kid, yet you should ask, how I may not be reluctant to lose him. The contrast between the Stoic and the average person is in this model. The average person implores that he is saved of adversity, the Stoic asks that he can discover the solidarity to acknowledge disaster. English state-funded schools trained Stoicism as a component of traditional instruction, and it is generally thought liable for the acclaimed British firm upper lip, a feeling of serenity in intense, even lamentable, conditions. 4. The obstruction is the way. The hindrance to activity propels activity. What holds up traffic turns into the way. Since everything, as indicated by the Stoics, is resolved, all that happens occurs as it ought to, you are unable to take care of the deterrents you may confront. Rather, the psyche can just discover a chance in the obstruction in light of the fact that the brain is all that we really have power over. The full statement is as per the following: our activities might be obstructed, yet there can be no blocking our expectations or manners. Since we can oblige and adjust, the psyche adjusts and converts to its own motivations the obstruction to our acting. The obstruction to activity propels activity. What holds up traffic turns into the way. My accentuation. In this regard, Stoicism is a sort of speculative chemistry of destiny. Issues and errors become brilliant exercises, misfortunes can become openings for otherworldly development. 5. There is no single truth we can know, just points of view. All that we get is a point of view, not a reality. All that we see is a point of view, not reality. The universe is great and valid, however we are nevertheless one piece of the entire, so along these lines can't completely realize that flawlessness and truth. Here Marcus is rehearsing perspectivism, another antiquated and repeating theme in way of thinking that dismisses the possibility that we can get to an extreme truth. In contrast to relativism, which sees no fact on the planet at all, perspectivism doesn't limit the possibility of truth. Notwithstanding, our comprehension of things is imperfect and socially intervened such that we can't completely get to reality. Each assessment is a point of view that is to a more noteworthy or lesser degree near reality, however not the ideal truth. 6. There is no, and there can be no, faultless person. The reliable man doesn't exist. Since there are just viewpoints that are pretty much evident, and never completely obvious, there can be no authoritative judgment. Apathy doesn't guarantee amazing information. On the off chance that there is no more significant position authority than reason and nature is administered by reason, at that point no man can have reliability, not even the Roman ruler himself. This boils down to the contrast among knowledge and astuteness. The really insightful man knows the constraints of his intelligence. 7. Be prudent in real life, not in principle. Burn through no additional time contending what a decent man ought to be. Be 1. The rationalist lord is underwriting prudence morals, the possibility that great lead exudes from great character. There are two other major moral formulae: consequentialist morals, the hypothesis that the best activities are those with the best results, and deontological, or obligation, morals, that prudence dwells just in the actual demonstration, not the outcomes of the demonstration. The contrast between these two is that the previous would permit you to tell an innocent embellishment in the event that you realize that great would happen to it. The last position would contend that all falsehoods are naturally terrible and you ought not lie paying little mind to the outcomes. Though consequentialism is guided by anticipated results, and deontological morals by standards, they are defective since they depend on our flawed points of view. Prudence morals depends not on standards but rather on character. The Stoic thinker Epictetus contended that if you somehow happen to live as per nature, you would act suitably. There would be no compelling reason to either figure the results of your activities nor learn rules to manage them. 8. You are your opinion. The things you consider decide the nature of your psyche. Your spirit assumes the shade of your contemplations. On the off chance that morals lie in righteous character, at that point how we behave at last comes down to thought and reason. Feelings for the Stoics are decisions and in this manner intellectual. Eagerness, for instance, is a bogus judgment about the inherent estimation of cash or assets. Since the method of the Stoic is to live as per nature, reason should be valued regardless of anything else, since the universe is represented by the laws of reason. 9. The endless importance of our lives. What we do in life swells in endlessness. So far we've discovered that Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics accepted that the universe is God. It is awesome, valid and unceasing. What is amazing should be interminable. We are a piece of the universe and what we do in our lives is essential for that forever. Individuals regularly inspire the monstrosity of the universe to show how minuscule and insignificant our lives are, only a bit of residue. In a monstrous universe with a long life expectancy that might be valid. In any case, these individuals are limiting boundlessness. In a limitless universe, our contemplations and activities take on a colossal importance since they are essential for a boundless chain. 10. Thought will give you an upbeat life. The joy of your life relies on the nature of your contemplations. We ought not evade the multifaceted nature of the world we live in or the intricacy of ourselves. On the off chance that we examine, we also can be liberated from passionate strife, profound exhaustion and jumbled reasoning. It requires some investment and boldness to think about. On the off chance that we are honored with the previous, we should accept the last mentioned. The antic